And there's some
Come
people where
on,
that never
Naima.
happens to.
Come on, Naima. I
So if
love
you
that.
live in peace and you project peace, you will not attract peace. And if there's something in the atmosphere that's off, you'll feel it. Your intuition will tell you this doesn't feel right. And you'll leave before that shooter comes into the 7-Eleven and blasts everybody. You will feel it in your spirit because your spirit is not in harmony with that vibration of violence. But when you keep giving yourself violence, then you'll be such in harmony with violence when it comes. You won't feel the warning, and you'll be right there when that active shooter comes into some peaceful place and blasts everybody because you're in harmony with that vibration. So you have to choose to not be in harmony with the vibration of violence. Don't have it in your home. Don't feed it to your children as toys and games. Even if everybody else is, choose not to, because that is what will change the society, and it'll change the experience that you have. Even in the worst of violence, you will be protected.
Oh, nah. I want to give you a hand for that because that was very good. And now Sandra got her hand up and TJ got his hand up. Sandra, go first. Sandra? TJ? Hello?
Well, essentially, I think the idea that I want to convey is two things. Weirdly, we've seen 2 or 3 mass shootings in the state of Colorado, right? That is very, very politically strange, considering Colorado not only has a Democratic governor, but a Democratic supermajority in the state, in the General Assembly. They have the trifecta. That means they have a Democratic majority in the state Senate, state House, and the governor. Why is it that when you have this ability to outlaw something that has been a recurring theme in the national deaths of people in your state, do you choose not to? So we can't even, and that's why in my earlier statements, you can't even now put this on the Republicans and say that they're responsible for this issue, because you have the call to respond to this issue as a leader in your community. And if you choose not to, you are just as responsible as the person who did the harming.
That's right.
Secondly, I want to speak to the idea of violent entertainment. There's 2 parts that I have to that. I had 2 ideas, and my ideas always conflict because me personally, I don't watch a lot of violent entertainment. If you know me, I watch a lot of band. So I mean, I'm attracting music, I guess. But I think that is true in one way or another. It does desensitize you from the idea of violence and what certain things means. Death no longer has the meaning that it used to have.
That's right. Oh, that's true.
As a Christian person, it has a totally different meaning from what it used to have still, because death in a more secular meaning means something different than it does in a Christian meaning or religious, more Abrahamic meaning. But now death is more like, okay, I can take this person's life, and that's like the life of an animal, or even less than that, the life, because people value their dogs, the life of an insect. So it has gone past the idea of okay, I'm taking somebody's life, I'm taking somebody's heart, somebody's anchor away from them, and this person will never ever live again. This person will never breathe again. People will never feel or have these experiences with this person again. And I remember, and this is one of the most paramount things that I remember. And I was going at the time, I was in 4th grade, and I'm going to James Wadsworth Elementary School. And they talked about how, I think, what is that? Under the viaduct, there was a boy, and he got robbed for his coat. His name, I believe, is Demario Bailey. So I was in 4th grade. So that was what, 8 years ago? Eight years ago? Yeah. So that was 2015. Demario Bailey was robbed under the viaduct for his coat and killed as he was on the way to play basketball at my school. He was on 63rd, and I believe, 63rd. And that has always resonated with me, because you would kill somebody for a coat. You would kill somebody for something that if you would go and get a job, if you would go and do something with yourself aside killing people, and this has nothing to do with the socioeconomic status and standing of black people, because it's a few $100 coat. I'm sure a few $100 has passed his hands before. But we have lost the idea of what death means. And so now you have, and black people now are more recent in losing that idea in our community. White people, I can say they probably have lost that maybe after the death of Jesus, even before then, because so that's thousands of years that a certain racial epithet has occurred. That when you see a certain, and I don't want to say all white people, I don't want to say that. I definitely don't want to say that. But as a whole, the race has done so much killing and so much of the glorification of killing devices. It was at first it was swords or stones, and then it was swords. Then it was muskets and cannons, and then you have now guns, and now you have guns and bombs and nuclear weapons. So it is it's not a process, but it's a recurring theme and habit that death is acceptable, and it's not. Murder is acceptable, and it's not.
That's why, I think that we should talk to our children and just discourage them about, my little great grandchildren. They love to go get guns from the dollar store. They want to get weapons, swords, stuff you can harm somebody with. And I asked them, let's go get a puzzle. Let's go get a book and let's learn how to read. Let's go. They don't want that. No, I want the gun. I want to shoot him. Where are they getting this from? From what they're watching on TV or what they're watching on these phones or what they're hearing in school. It's really what you said, Naima, is so true.
But Wanda, do you buy the gun once you tell them no?
No, I don't buy the gun. I don't buy the gun, but
right. The
I'm
person who
sure
has the
their
power.
parents do. I don't buy it, but yeah, I'm sure the parents do. Or
but that's the
does.
problem. But see, that's the problem. You and the parents are not on the same accord. And see, that's what I'm saying. And like you said, because you got to tell people too, you're not only a grandma, you're also a great grandma. So come on, let's get all that story back to really get the clear picture.
She's a tattletale.
2 generations.
It's okay. I'm a great grandma. I'm a great grandmother too. It's okay. But what I'm saying is one thing, and Karen, I got a question for you too. What Naima and TJ has pulled out is the fact that this is a cultural issue. Yes. This is a cultural issue for America. This is part of our culture now. The mass shootings are now becoming part of the culture now. This is, and that's where the conflict is. But to stop and change bad culture, like you change bad behavior, it has to be something put in place. And again, it starts at the grassroots level to start to address and eradicate. Like Karen said, the schools are again started thinking of, okay, let's talk about it. Let's see what can we do, or why is it happening? What needs to be said to the student? How do we make them feel safer? How do we deter them from our standpoint? Because you got to remember, schools are not responsible for babysitting kids, and they don't even address the fact that somebody may be homeless. They make sure the homeless get educated. They make sure the homeless can also be fed a lunch. They make them requirements. They make it easier for those things that you would do if you had a parent in place. But they're also not responsible so much for, again, changing the mindset of that kid when they're home, where it's much of a culture. What goes on in your home also can be reflected in your school and other places where you go. Because one thing I want to say when you talk about violence, we're not talking about just gun violence and being desensitized to violence. We're talking about domestic violence also.
That's right. Yes.
And yes, a lot of that, and domestic violence includes cussing at kids. And I'm not talking about the little, well, I'll be damned, you broke that? No, I'm talking about the MF and And that seems to be, it's not funny. I find it deplorable.
I see it all the time.
Women on the corner. I see them Black, Hispanic. I never had a white girl do it, but I've had the white girls. I've seen them in the mall, to include Orland Park, cuss their little white kids out, getting them over to the truck, talking about some stupid stuff about some popcorn or something, and the kid take the shoe off, throw it down the doggone lane, and she cursed that kid like that kid is an adult, or even worse, curse that kid like that kid is a stranger. That is unacceptable at any level. Yes. There is never a good cause for an adult to have to cuss out a kid, because guess what? You're the adult. You're in charge. And when you think you're losing it, guess what you should do? Leave. And if the kid does not do what you're telling them to do, because that's the great thing about being a grandmother and a great grandmother, I can get that kid to their mama or their daddy, and I don't have to be bothered with that kid. Now, when it was my child, it started from the crib. They knew they had their expectations of me as mom, and I had my expectations of them as children. I took care and provided for their needs, but I taught them to be respectful. And even when they were crying or having a tantrum or having a bad day, you have to sit down and sometimes come down to the floor with that little kid, that 2-year-old, to see why they're not happy and see what's going on. You don't just hit them, take them in a room, push them in the room, close the door, tell them to get in and sit your damn ass down, and all that other stuff, which I've seen and heard many times. And it's horrific. And what happens, that also becomes a form of desensitizing them. Yes. That becomes their norm.
To add to that, there was a child psychologist, and he was on, I believe, the Breakfast Club, and he even addressed a further issue that you do find this issue a lot in the Black community that you don't find as often in white communities. And his quote was, and don't look at me crazy when I say this, but it sounds a little crazy when you hear it the first time, but without explanation. He said, sometimes Black children have to do what is perceived as disrespectful to gain their voice, right? Now, the term that you hear that, and one main thing that you see with a lot of people who have these social emotional issues that heightens them is the fact that they don't feel they're being heard or their needs are being met. But he said this, and they said this in meaning. He said, this is an example. A Black mother would tell her child, go outside and paint the house. And it's disrespectful if the child says, well, why am I painting the house? But if he says, okay, it's and just goes and paints the house, that's seen as respectful, right? But you want your child to grow up and be able to advocate for themselves and wonder, why am I painting the house? Why am I painting the house? And it creates this voice in a child that allows them to speak and don't respond later on in life with a very inappropriate and improper way of responding to a lack of needs being met. And that's what you see now. You see so many kids who are just reacting to a lack of needs being met, or a lack of, and the child, she said she wanted to kill herself. But I'm sure her friend wasn't the first person she told that to. But what did the parents, who were probably religious nuts, who have no idea how to respond to a child going through a crisis? Well, because chances are they probably don't even believe in that. People believe that vaccines give you autism and all type of other stuff. So you just never know what people believe these days. So because you never know what people believe, the child, they might have just dismissed any psychological or mental illness as just they don't pray enough, or I'd sinned, so my child is messed up. No. But even if that is the case, you still have to provide the proper help and the proper aid to ensure that your child doesn't go and mess somebody else's child up, or somebody else's household up, or somebody else's life by going and taking 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 lives of people who haven't even lived.
Yeah,
I agree.
One thing that's important to understand too, though, this is America. It's a democracy. You know, so far it's a democracy, and a lot of the fighting is about that. And we do have orphans, But the culture, I think it was when you said we got a different culture, so it's under attack. Put a name on it. When things don't have a name, we do the same. We say the same thing over and over again. When I was a child, this wouldn't happen. That stuff is almost irrelevant. That's crazy. For if I show my high school ID to my grandson, and I'm a great grandmother too, it's abstract to him because he was born in 2007. My oldest grandson is 33. So it's almost like we're dealing with another group of people,
We
and we
are.
have to trying to understand them. What it is a ma'afa. The CTU, Chicago Teachers Union, is giving. I'm doing a class there, which is a Holocaust class. There's one thing about the Jewish community, they're going to step up and start protecting theirs because they're looking at what's going on in the whole picture, as opposed to just looking in these little tiny spots or looking at it personally, you know. And so this is what Dr. Wright and the Black movement had always a ma'afa. This ma'afa started all the way back from the time that we were brought over here, but we've been looking at it. For me, I'm 70, almost 70 years old. It's been a systematic thing, you know, in the schools. I mean, I know I'm an extremely traumatized woman. And it took this pandemic for me to even acknowledge my own serious trauma.
Mm-hmm.
All I know how to do is do what I know how to do, and that's teach and get the job done. Because the more they know, the safer they can make themselves. If they don't
Right.
know anything, you know what I mean? Because we're dealing with a group.
Yeah.
The 12-step community has a first step. You know, the Ten Commandments has a first step. Ten Commandments. I am the Lord thy God. Okay, whoever God that is, because we have all these different cultures and um, religious groups, but the 12-step community, those people have done very well with I'm powerless, you know. You got to think you got a lot of power to take somebody's life, you
Yeah.
know. You have a bunch of people running around with that idea is it's a culture it's culturally incompetent. We were much more competent, almost more competent in slavery, because at least you knew who the problem was.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. Sandra, you have your hand up. You had a comment?
I was going to say something that, again, where Naima and also what TJ said about what the psychologist said. We were just on a huge family get together, impromptu, and people came from out of state and everywhere. And while we were addressing one segment of the family, and please, please believe, I'm telling you, huge. And we still had a small representation, but what a lot of the icons of those various groups or individual clans, as we call ourselves, because we all one big collective, they were there. But we had one group that's really struggling to even get along with each other. And what we noticed, that group was missing their elders. Their elders happened to be cousins that were only 2 years older than me. Their kids and grandkids and great grands were not in touch with the other icons that my kids and the other clans' kids and grandkids and great grands have been in touch with. They were missing the like you just said, like Karen said, when you talk about the storytelling, which again was the truth and the facts, and this is stuff again that was on Ancestry. We were able to pull up Ancestry stuff and give it to them because we knew the data and the information to go and retrieve the information. So they were able to say, this is who you are, and this is who this was. And without having those individuals to be able to talk about the historians, to talk about our family culture and our beliefs and how they got started, our traditions, and the reason why we want to carry them on, we found out that group was in constant conflict with each other. The conflict was so bad at times, we could actually say it was semi-violent because it was always a clash. And not having that, I think, for these other cultures and ethnicities, because the same problems that I saw with them is occurring also in the Black community. There again, like we say, we happen to have 5 generations. At one point, we had 6 generations in the family, and we still have the 5. We have some more coming where we get into 6 and 7 again. But I can tell you, those groups that only have 3, and they never get beyond that 3, and they're not interacting with those much older folks, there's something missing. There's a void. And one included from one person, one of the other group members said, I found this young man who is an adult, he's 30-something years old. They said, you know what? He had no respect for his uncle. And that was something that, and when I heard that, I said, what do you mean you didn't respect his uncle? And he made the comment, who also is a man of the cloth. And we made the comment, he said, he gonna have to take me as I am. I'm not gonna change for nobody. And I stopped because that uncle is younger than me, but I respect him even as a clergy, because like I told him, I said, well, you know, he's wrong. He needs to stand down because he's my cousin, but I show him so much respect. I don't even cuss when I talk to him. And even when I get mad, I make sure Naima can laugh because she's heard me when I'm passionate about something. I'm gonna cuss, but I make a conscious effort to respect him because of who he is. And therefore, I have to make sure he understands my passion and what it means to me and understands my meaning. And I do it without being disrespectful. But that is something that was learned. And this kid is unfortunate because I know his mama, and I'm thinking, how his mama let this go by? Because she respects her older brother. Yet her son has told my cousin, the other cousin, that he doesn't respect his uncle and doesn't respect the fact he's a clergy. And see, if we look at that, like we talk about root causes, I hate to tell you, I do a lot of business stuff. And again, you do the case study first, then you come out and you just start trying the root causes, the case analysis, in order to come up with a solution. I'm one of the people, I don't believe in talking about a problem unless you can bring me some solutions. And I think that's something that we all have to start doing. Everybody keeps talking about, especially my friends 60 and over, some of them that are 55 and over. All of a sudden, everybody on this big thing, they want to leave a legacy, or they don't want to be forgotten, or they don't want their trade to be forgotten. Should have been thinking about that when you're back here 20 and 30. But what you have to do now is work with what we got going on now. Because another thing Karen said, we couldn't have predicted these times because they were not evident. These mass shootings were, like I told you, Lori Dane, 1988. That was so different. I mean, and so far out the box. Nobody could have predicted that. Well, what was that dude that killed all those nurses that time here in Cook County and went to jail, and he finally went on and died? Again,
Richard Speck.
Yes.
Richard Speck.
I wanted to say
Richard Speck.
Again,
Richard Speck.
mass killings were, again, so few and far between, you know. So to people, schools, everybody loves and values their children. Kids used to be off limits. You're right, they would kill dogs. Now dogs are off limits, they kill the damn kids. I'm like, what the hell? How did that shift occur, and how is it acceptable? But that's what we're dealing with. Right. That's exactly what we're doing. They will care more about the dog and act more of a fool about a dog being killed than they will an individual now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for that insight, Sandra. I see that we have Lawanza has joined us. And, you know, Lawanza is, he always comes with that perspective of the Northwestern professor. Come on, Lawanza, tell us what you think about these mass murders that have been taking place since January of this year, 129.
Wow. You know, the way I look at this, you know, a lot of this is You know, well, Malcolm said the same thing that Malcolm said about the JFK assassination. Chickens have come home to roost. I mean, you know, these people have created a condition. Uh, they created circumstances that is responsible for the means, the behavior that these people show. But it's got to be more than that. You know, in no society do people do this sort of thing. There has to a lot of these killings and murders and assaults seem to be connected with some sort of occult ritual. Because they occur with such frequency. Oh yes, okay. Yes. You have families, rich families who run and control this country and have been doing it from the very beginning. You never hear their names. You know, you never hear their names. You never hear. You just hear the Rupert Murdochs. You hear the guy from Microsoft. They're just number of strong men and figureheads because there's individuals who are responsible for the formation of this country. They control the natural resources and the pillar industries, and they just use these as strong men who everybody looks at to serve as a diversion from who they are. And these people who run this country are really down deep. Um, they are in the occult, Rosicrucians, all these type of societies. And what we know about them is that they engage in all kinds of practices, and one of them being occult rituals. I'm 62, and I remember as a child back in the 60s, 67, seeing Dark Shadows. And Dark Shadows was supposed to have been about a rich Illuminati family, and Dark Shadows, it taught what that really said something about was the practices of the high elite old money that goes on in this country, and it was being expressed in that series, that daytime series. And they don't show you that anymore. Sometimes you might pick it up in some of these movies if you know what you're looking for and what to look for, but it certainly has something to do with that. These things are just happening willy nilly, out of the middle of nowhere.
Right.
It is planned that way.
That's right. I agree with that. I agree. I agree. Well, hey, folks, we're at the close of the show, but I think that this is a topic that we all need to think very closely about because, like you said, Sandra, it's the culture. It's the new culture of what is this? They're calling this time that we're in. Dr. Spivey said it. We're in the time where things are evolving. They're like you
Cancel
said, Karen.
culture?
I'm
Cancel?
sorry.
Is it called the cancel culture? Where people
Yes,
cancel?
yes. He said that people today, you're seeing you're seeing the other hats that we wear. People are just doing all kind of things, and I just wonder if they weren't thinking of those things all along. I don't know. We just need to listen to our children, respond to their inquiries, and like Sandra said, don't cuss them out. Don't make them feel like they can't ask questions, because from the mouth of babes comes a lot of truth. We need to listen to that truth and see what we can hear, how we might be able to save our lives through our children. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening. And I guess we're going to have to come back and do some more on this topic. What say you? Should we do that? Should we come back and do some more?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm sure it's going to be. I'm sure it's going to be a hot topic for a while because, as you know, they're happening every 2 or 3 weeks. The one thing about the 129 that we didn't get a chance to say is we aren't 90 days into the new year.
Yes.
So have 129 mass shootings in less than 90 days. If we average it out, we got all the teachers and professors on here. I remember average a little bit. That amounts to 1.01 a day. The fact that, and more than that, and that's at least once a day for that's what we've had for the last, and we're not 90 days in yet. And I just saw a report where it went up from because we've had 129, and there's an organization that tracks this, and they put out that it's 133.
Oh.
So either way, that's a lot, and the year just started.
Yes.
We just got into the year.
Yes,
So
right.
I mean, this is something that we need to address.
Well, I want to ask something about that. You know, when I was a kid coming up, you could cut on 257 and you would hear news stories about the bills that were being passed in Congress and the measures. When's the last time you heard anything about measures being passed over there at City Hall and stuff like that, and stuff down in state legislature? You
Well,
don't when
Pritzker did put it out, but we ain't talking about those people up in City Hall because they ain't doing nothing no way. The
well
ones that
you know
got tired of getting
but
the
the
ones that
point
got tired of getting a check, they didn't run again. They made their
but
money. Now they got some new
that's
clients.
exactly the point I'm making
They
is
ain't doing nothing
that
but collecting the check. Yeah,
but
it's
that's
the same
exactly the point
shame.
I'm making is that while we look at mass murders and stuff, the things that impact us the most, taxations, the laws, and the rules that we live by, that impacts us on a day-to-day basis. I mean, you every time you walk out your door, you don't see a mass shooting. I mean, that's just me real. So my point is that they're using those events that appeals to people's sensibilities and feelings, this sensationalization as a diversion to
That's
keep us
right.
off track.
Well, no, but again, that I would say shame on that person because you need to be able to walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. I hear about a gazillion things going on to include the problems they're having with the mortgages now because I told them houses weren't worth that money in the beginning. I see it upside down with the card note and they trying to trade in a new car and they still taking $10,000 over in a car that they didn't upgrade in. They didn't do an upgrade. It was a lateral move. So I'm able to walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. I don't let one thing get my attention. I just think again from a parent and grandparent and I believe in education. I don't want anybody to be deterred from getting an education. But when you start being afraid to attend school, to attend college, because you don't know if you're safe, this bothers these young people. All of our butts on here, with the exception of TJ, well, Naima, she's still here. I ain't gonna talk about her. We all are old enough where we know how to handle this foolishness, whereas they can't. And we need to teach them how to handle this and to still pursue their dreams, but pursue it cautiously. And know the warning signs and keep yourself safe. So we're doing similar to what I was raised doing civil rights. And my grandmother and my mother and my uncle and my father, and they were all active in the civil rights movement. So we were trained and told things of we kids and what to do and how to stay safe. And I just feel like this is the same thing here that I'm telling my grandkids who are now being emancipated. And I got a great grand. And if I can share that information with others, I will. I don't think it's a deterrent.
Yeah.
But I just think it's one of the other things we need to be mindful of.
Putting a name on these events because it is a ma'afa. If we were in Germany, it would be the Holocaust. But we can't, but the word Holocaust belongs to that community. Everything is about a buck. So we can't use that. Moms Demand Action. There's so many people, in Naima's organization. I'd love to talk to her about that because I think a lot is going to fall on the shoulders of women, because women give birth. We give birth. We pay that penal industrial complex our money when they take our babies. I mean, we're the ones standing in them funeral homes.
Say it,
That's what I
Karen. Say it.
saw all through my, I couldn't be a teacher. It took me I have been I'm traumatized.
Yeah.
It's actually coming to me how serious this thing was because you look around and if other people don't see what you see, and if you're talking about, they're not going to be, it doesn't become real till we can all feel it.
And that's
that,
right.
right.
Feel it
And
now.
I hate for them to be on the same side that those parents are on now, that happened to them in that Presbyterian church. You don't need to be burned to know that a stove is hot.
That's right.
And that's our purpose.
Come on. It's on us. The women are gonna
Yep.
have to do it. We have to protect our kings because
Yes.
every man and every woman is born a king or a queen.
Yes.
This world is mean. It's this. The world has what it has. That's why we call it the world.
That's
So we
right.
just have to protect everybody in order to protect our kings
That's
because they
right.
in them classrooms. You got the whole world in the classroom. You do not have no what do you no one group of people. You got Hispanics and blacks and whites, Polish, Lithuanians. I mean, they have all sorts of things going on. It's very difficult when the adults above them are not even communicating.
That's
So
right.
if we can communicate, how are we going to tell somebody else what to do when we can't do it ourselves?
So
And
true. So
to,
true.
to just quickly center on the one thing, to even just point out something, because Marjorie Taylor Greene, we all know who she is. She's crazy, and she doesn't really have any mental anchoring. But her comment was that when she was in 11th grade, Joe Biden, who wasn't the president at the time, so that she's already off the deep end, passed the gun-free school zone safety act or something along those lines. And what we have to even realize, I just looked at the facts. At that time, when George H.W. Bush was president, 313 representatives voted in favor of that act. The Republican president signed it into law. Why is it now that these people who claim to be the party of Reagan, right? Because they love to just put Reagan on a pedestal, and Bush was Reagan's vice president and then succeeded him in the presidency. So they shared a lot of ideals. You say that you want to be like him. Well, then pass the legislation. But why won't they? Because their pockets are being lined by gun packs, the NRA, to continuously put the lives of children at risk every day, all day. And that
That's a
is the
deep
biggest
statement there.
problem you will find when you can pay your politicians. As a matter of fact, I was going to say this with the last conversation we had. We need to line up the politicians and have them all say that if they would they not collect a salary or a single dime from any political organization or the government or any salary for 2 terms, or well, for Congress 2 terms, that's 4 years, or 1 term of 1 4-year term, or in Senate 1 6-year term. How many of them would sign up to do that? How many
None.
of them willingly be in their office without any fiscal compensation
None.
that are in
None.
office now?
Zero.
Exactly. And that proves the biggest point to our
One,
problem. It's a money thing.
but the ones who've made so much money, they could actually make that gesture,
Oh yes,
because they
definitely.
made so much money already,
They all
and they
become
make money doing
multimillionaires
other things. Like, we got Big
and
Jim Thompson,
billionaires.
the Thompson building. Remember he went to jail because it's just too much money. I was at when I was listening to some aldermen from the South Side. I mean, people who are running, William Hall and these young Butler, those guys. These people are so smart. I heard them say, William Hall said, Chicago is the third richest city. In other words, the third richest city in the world, not in the country, but in the world. So you're going to have crime. We can forget not thinking we're not going to have crime, and we're going to have chaos. But at this level, it's out of control. Where is the balance? And the balance, because in any society, what is it? The African philosophy is that a society is judged by how it treats its old people and its young people.
That's right.
Old people scared to come out and the young people are dying, then that means we're going to be stuck with the folks in the middle. And they're
And this
just
society
ambitious.
has definitely disregarded both. They raised the retirement age to a trillion years old. and then the healthcare is so inaccessible that you're dying before you even reach the age.
That's yes, sir.
Then the young people, they get killed before they even make it out of high school. So what do you have? You have
Except
a
for
society
those
that
who
is
are
slowly
making,
eradicating itself.
but those who are making the big bucks, they talking about retiring at 40.
That's right.
So you retire at 40. So what you gonna be doing after that? I mean, so we're out of there's no Sankofa. There's no looking back to go forward. Everybody's just moving forward.
Yeah.
And we've fallen off that cliff.
I wouldn't even say we're moving forward. I think we're just moving. We're going forward. We're just doing something.
It's
Going
called
in all
spinning.
directions, right?
It's called spinning in your skin. Just spinning in your skin.
Thank you,
Okay,
ladies and gentlemen. We out of here.
Hey, Wanda.
Yes.
Good night.
I want everybody to tune in tomorrow night. We're going to be talking about the consolidation and liquidation of the units of government. We're looking to talk about the fact that we got 102 counties and we want to cut that down to 50. And we got 852 school districts. We want to cut that down to 50 unified school districts and get the schools off the property tax system. So tune in tomorrow night at 7.
The same same ID?
Yes.
The same ID we use?
No, I'll send out his invitation. So I'll send it out tonight. As a matter of fact, when this is over, I'll send it out, but it's for tomorrow.
Yes.
And it's after my show tomorrow.
Yes.
So I have a 6 o'clock woman to woman show, and he's following me at 7 o'clock with the tax show.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. Good show, Wanda.
Thank you, sweetie. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
God bless everybody.
God bless.
Likewise.